I never had Lego as a child. I'm sure if I did, I would be an engineer today because I'm loving it now. But I had family that was coming to visit one summer, and I was looking for something to entertain the kids. A friend of mine had a garage sale. Her kids had just gone off to college, and she gave me this stuff for, I mean, pennies on the dollar. And I realized what it was really worth and how much more there was out there. And I've been collecting ever since, about 15 years.
15 years.
Parts, and mainly parts. Garage sales, bulk lots. I don't personally buy sets or display big sets.
When did you realize you liked building these grand scale type projects and putting them together? Like, what was it? What was it clicked?
Recently, I was a tennis teaching professional for 30, 35 years, my whole life. Graduated college with master's in kinesiology and didn't really ever apply it. I taught tennis. That was my first love. And then when I walked out of that role, I turned to Lego to de-stress and just started designing and having fun with it. And it's just skyrocketed from there.
What was your first project? Your first build?
I did a city like this for Christmas last year. That was really my first design my own stuff. So now it's so much more fun than reading somebody else's instructions.
Take me through the Brentwood project. This is something that really, would you say this is like would be your grandest project up to date?
It's going to be hopefully very representative of the rich history in Brentwood, and I want to be able to share that because personally I knew nothing about the history even 6 months ago. I went to an event at the Historical Society. I saw not only my mother's name, she was very involved in politics and education system here. My name was on the quilt. Wow, I had no idea. And then I just started learning more and more, and I want to represent this. And maybe there's other people that grew up here and came back, and just like me, they don't know anything about the history. I mean, it definitely feels personal. I grew up here, came back, purchased the house I grew up in. I went to school with a lot of the kids that are farming families. So all the street names and the ranches, like, oh, I know those names. I know those people. So it's definitely part of my history. And it's just fun to represent it. And
talk about
it could change. It could evolve. I'm going to start here, and then there could be an agricultural farming project that spurs out of this. Railroad, definitely. All sorts of things.
Talk about the challenge of building old Brentwood. I think a lot of people don't realize how much the city has changed, not just through the last century, but not just through the last 75 years, but also just the last 10 years in general, how different everything is now. What's the challenge of that? Because you also do the Brentwood Hotel, which is hard to find imagery of the blueprints for stuff like that. So talk about the challenges.
The photography, for one, was black and white. I'm guessing, or I'm actually speaking to as many of the older residents as I can. What do you remember about the colors? So I learned there's a lot of tan, obviously a lot of wood. But the details here, this was huge. All I have are pictures that, it's black and white and it's grainy. That doesn't do justice, but I'm using that to try to duplicate, and there are people that know a little bit more, so I'm waiting to be able to fill this out a little better. And I still may end up only taking, a portion of it so I can represent it a little bit more.
So you try to build the insides as well as the outside.
Is that kind of... Not a lot of it, but a little bit. There's courtyards that were supposed to be very elaborate and lush. So that would be nice to show. I don't...
Would you say that's like your biggest challenge, the hotel part? Or is it just like kind of throughout the downtown?
This building and the press building, for example, were probably two of the most detailed. A lot of ornamental architecture design.
We appreciate the representation there.
Others were just, box shapes.
I mean, you and I were talking off camera about this. Let's talk about just kind of rescaling things, because you have original builds, which you did for certain buildings, like the press building, and then you had to kind of scale it down. Just talk about just the challenge of scaling and getting it to a proper size where you can represent. Because you're just doing downtown Brentwood, right?
Yes.
So the way
I scatter in some agricultural because it's a huge part of the history.
But the bulk of it is really going to be
the
old downtown. So talk about the challenge of trying to get the right scale and kind of like building it and then scaling it down. That seems to be that when you and I were talking, that seems to have kind of been part of the process.
So the hotel was huge, about 150 by 150 square feet. That's huge. So I mean, And then the train depot was also a large structure. So if I keep everything else to scale with those, I'm going to need a huge display space. And the cost just skyrockets the more parts you need. And
How far would you
where
say?
am I going to display it?
How far would you say you are in the project so far? Like percent, if you were to give like a percentage.
Just
wise,
really started, and I'm not positive this is the scale I'm going to stick to.
so it can
If
still
I
come
don't,
down.
if I don't need the whole hotel, I don't need the whole Ford building. I can just show the front portion,
Right.
and get more details by making it a little bit bigger. I came up with this idea of selling Lego bricks. And these bricks are not going to be part of the actual models. I'm going to make a sponsor wall.
Oh, okay.
So these bricks will be,
Right.
they might end up saying thank you or sponsors, but it'll be a wall that's always displayed with the project. But it's going to be able to, basically say thank you to all the people that were a part of it. And
It'll have your name.
they can
and all
have
that
their
kind of stuff.
message. They can have their business name. They can have a little message. Lego bricks are small, so it can't be a huge message. But
Right.
if they wanted to buy more bricks and represent whatever they want to, I'm fine with that.
If I may ask, how much have you raised so far? Rough estimate.
Just less than $100. I really
Okay.
haven't announced it yet.
So, oh,
This will be,
it's
I've
just
been
started.
kind of waiting, so
Right.
you guys get to announce it.
Oh,
The
thank you.
Historical Society knows, but really, no
But
one
as far
else.
as like it's not fully out there just
Right,
yet.
and nobody
Okay.
else knows about the specific fundraiser or dollar amounts or anything.
If I may ask, how much, if you can ballpark it, how much would a project like this cost?
So I'm already into at least $500 just with the base, the modular base system. Nothing to do with parts. Until I determine the exact scale, it's going to be hard to calculate, but easily several $1,000s.
What do you hope this project accomplishes, kind of long run as far as the overall?
Sharing education history. I mean, and it could, like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm going to spiral into other projects: the history of the railroad, the history of the agricultural, community in this area. It's all huge.
Would you say that's like your way of helping educate like through Legos and kind of giving
And it's
that
fun.
visual representation?
And if I can go a little bit larger and have minifigures involved, that's what's going to make it really fun for the kids. And
Have you reached out to Lego about this at all?
no,
No.
they have so many people doing. People want things all the time.
Right.
I think there's enough sponsors that feel personally connected to Brentwood that might help.